Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're doing something a bit weird. We're doing a part 2 to the May wrap-up. Now that's because the first May wrap-up that I did was basically actually just a check-in video. It was like halfway through the month. I think it was like, I recorded it May 13th or 14th or something like that. And, well, a lot happened in the second half of the month, right? So, on the 17th, I went on vacation. My vacation ended on the 31st. I was back in the States at that point. A few days later, we are here back in my apartment here in Dallas. And throughout the whole time that I was on vacation, I had a great time. So my vacation was go down to Mexico City, meet with my mom's brother and his family, and then from there go to a different place. We went to this place called Oaxaca, which is a big, massive state in Mexico, but also the name of the city that is the capital of that state, right? It's kind of like, well, kind of like Mexico City itself. It's named after the country, or the country's named after the city. Same idea, right? And Oaxaca is a really special place in Mexico. It's kind of a little bit south of Mexico City. Is it? Yes, it is south of Mexico City. And it is kind of where a lot of important people from Mexican history came from. It was kind of like a cultural center for a long time back in the early days of Mexico. And it is a very like nature-rich kind of environment, right? So if you look at Mexico, and Mexico looks kind of like a cornucopia or a funnel, right? It has a large section in the top, and then it shrinks, and then it comes back out to the Yucatan. Oaxaca is one of the two states that are in that funnel section, right? So it's Oaxaca on the bottom and Veracruz at the top. And Mexico City is a little bit higher than that because Mexico City is kind of like in the center of the whole country, right? More or less. And Oaxaca is kind of known for a few things, right? One of the things that it's known for is its mountainous elevation. It has a really kind of weird situation where both the Sierra Madres, which are actually also the Rockies and the Appalachian Mountains, or the Rockies and the Appalachians, can go through the United States, go to Mexico, become the Sierra Madres, and then kind of join in at that bottom funnel section, right? And so Oaxaca and Veracruz kind of end up being these parts of the country that are kind of like valleys and peaks throughout the whole thing, right? And in those valleys, there's a lot of cultural and natural diversity, biodiversity, right? And Oaxaca is kind of like the place where mezcal comes from. Mezcal is the non-denominational or non-place origin version of tequila. Tequila is a type of mezcal. Mezcal is like the ancestral kind of Mexican alcohol or liquor, right? And there's a lot of special people that make mezcal there that are kind of artisanal or kind of ancestral style, right? Some of them do it in the way that Native Americans used to do it back in the day, Mesoamericans used to do it back in the day. Some of them do it in the Spanish style, but not in the industrial style, right? So after the Spaniards came by, they introduced a bunch of stuff like horses and these mashers and these kind of things that are different from what the Native Americans would have used at the time, right? And so there's kind of these three different processes to make mezcal. And one of the things that we did was go to one of these places. So we went to one that is kind of artisanal mezcal, right? They do small quantities. They do things in the second version, right? The Spanish style, right? And then we went to one that was ancestral. So they only do it naturally. The people that all worked there were all really small because they were all kind of like Zapotec lineage people, right? The Zapotecs are kind of like the Native Americans of that region of Mexico. And they were different from the Mayans or the Aztecs, right? And in that place, we kind of saw how they did it. They used, these giant rock things, and they would like smoke the mezcal plant. Actually, it's called agave, right? And so that was one of the things we did. The other thing we did was chase coffee around the city. My dad was really interested in getting coffee. Coffee in Mexico comes from a few different places, usually from places with very high elevations. Oaxaca happens to be one of them. I think Veracruz and Chiapas is the other two places. And so we went across the city trying to find coffee, and we found some really good coffee. I think the strain is called Pluma, which means feather. What else was there? So we did that. The thing is that, we kept constantly kind of going into this wall where the people that were selling the coffee weren't really coffee drinkers themselves, or didn't really understand the value of coffee too much. They were just kind of doing it because everyone wants to drink coffee, or because the big tourist kind of people that come by want coffee, right? And so when my dad, who was a tourist but also Mexican, kept asking them, hey, like, where would I get the best coffee? The answer was always go into the peaks and go talk to the people that actually grow it and see what you can do, right? And that's a good answer, but it's not the type of answer we needed, because we didn't want to establish a connection with like a farm, right? We were looking to just get good coffee, right? And so it was a kind of a difficult journey. It was kind of odd. My dad didn't expect that, but it is what it is. It's just kind of, it works differently down there sometimes. So we did that, and then we went to these kind of awesome mountainous regions. So we went to this place called Hierve el Agua, which literally means boiling water, or where the water boils, right? Something like that. And this is very similar to Pamukkale in Turkey. It's this rock formation. It's kind of like a stalactite or stalagmite kind of formation made from hot calcified water that pushes through the mountains and then slowly drips like off the edge of a mountain, right? And so it makes these really interesting waterfall formations. They look like waterfalls. They're made of rock, and it's just calcium deposits, right? And they took like 4,000 years or something to make, maybe more, actually. And so the one in Turkey, the Pamukkale one, which I've been to actually, because I used to travel to Turkey a lot as a teenager. That one is kind of crystal clear and white. The one in Mexico, because of the different kind of rocks and kind of natural materials, is kind of more of a reddish white kind of color. It doesn't look as pretty as Pamukkale because it's not crystalline water, but it is still very awesome. And one of the greatest things about going to Oaxaca was that there was constantly these beautiful views everywhere you stood, because they're so high up in the mountain. In some cases, you can just kind of see the whole valley in front of you, and it was really beautiful stuff. So we went to boiling water. My dad had a very difficult time coming back up the mountain because you start at the top and then you go walking down, right? And so you stop at different terraces, right? And each terrace corresponds to one of these rock formations, right? And if you go all the way to the bottom, you have to eventually come all the way back up, right? And because we're people from Houston, we're not used to, high elevations. It's really difficult to have to climb back up when you go down, right? Especially if you're not used to it. We're used to sea level. Anytime we go to Mexico City or South Mexico, even North Mexico sometimes, all of us kind of have lightheadedness for a few days while we get used to the thinner atmosphere. It's not significantly thinner, but it is noticeable, and it's just harder to kind of walk around, right? And so it was kind of funny. My dad had a bit of a difficulty. My uncle thought it was hilarious, and he asked our tour guide, what the heck's going on? How likely is it that he's going to pass out, or that that we need to get him out of there, right? And then the tour guide was like, "No, he's fine. But if he does pass out, we'll go get a donkey, and donkey will take him back up to the top of the mountain." And I thought that was hilarious. I busted out laughing just because I imagined my dad like laying on top of a donkey, and I thought it was hilarious. But so that was one of the cool things that we did there. The other thing is that we went to these ruins for the Zapotec cultures, or the people that were descended of Zapotec cultures in the area. We went to different places. So the first place we went to was called Mitla. And Mitla is it's not Anglican because it's not from English. It is a Hispanicization, I guess, or a Hispanic version of the native name for this place. So the Aztecs, when they came down to Oaxaca, they called this place Mitlan or Matlan or something like that. And it was basically, it means the land of the dead. And over time, this became Mitla, which is the name of that city. And what was there was this really beautiful, like almost Greek style, like fortress, I guess you could call it. Maybe it's not a fortress. It was kind of like a city, or maybe just a giant house. And it looked really pretty. It was really cool. And I just thought it was interesting that the whole place was called Underworld, or, hell. Even though it was like up in the sky, very bright. And it was, apparently it was because the people at Mitla, their main god for worship was a god of rebirth, or a god of the afterlife, or a god of death, right? Something like that. It was like a god that encompasses all those things. But when you think of a god of death, you think of like the devil or something. It wasn't like that. It was a bit different. It was just about revering the fact that you eventually go back into the earth, right? And so the Aztecs came by. They were like, okay, this is the underworld place, whatever, let's move on, right? And so that one was cool. We got rained out a little bit, so we didn't get to explore the area that much, but it was quite beautiful. It was really cool. And it was interesting because a lot of these places just remind me of like Greek architecture, these like flat regions with these big columns and these kind of very straight, kind of interesting things. And it's really cool. And the thing is that in Oaxaca, the structures don't go very high up because of the crazy amount of earthquakes that they experience. And so most of the time, even though they were nice and big, they weren't super tall, like not comparatively to like other Mesoamerican things, right? They didn't really build pyramids as such. They usually built pits, or they built kind of like wide, long structures, kind of like Vikings did, right? Long houses and stuff like that. Because they needed to make sure that the building wouldn't collapse on them, right? Due to all of the earthquakes, right? So we went to Mitla, and then the other place we went to was called Monte Alban, or Mont Alban, which is like White Mountain. And the reason it was called that is because when it was found by Spaniards, it was covered in trees that had white flowers. And so it looked like a mountain peak that was, full of snow. So they called it the White Mount, or the White Mountain. And over time, modern Mexicans excavated the area and realized that this used to be a city. And apparently this is the kind of seat of power of the Zapotec people, because at the very top of it, it was in Oaxaca City, or near Oaxaca City, about 20 minutes from the city. It was the tallest peak in the area. They flattened it, the Zapotecs flattened it, turned it into this 6 kilometer wide, or this area that was 6 kilometers large. They flattened it, they turned it into palaces and seats of power and houses and all of this stuff for the ruling class. And then everyone else that lived around here were peasants, and they had to live at the bottom of the mountain. And we looked at a 2 kilometer stretch of this, right? So we didn't get to see the whole mountain peak. We only got to see the middle portion, which was really the most impressive stuff. And it was awesome. It was so beautiful. And it was really interesting that these people built this here by doing like a Minecraft technique, right? They flattened the top of a mountain and then they built on top of it, and all of the stuff that they built was pretty square and kind of rectangular, right? And a lot of it was like pits in order to hide kind of like things from from being visible and stuff, and kind of reminiscent of the valleys and peaks of the natural landscape. So it was really cool. Monte Alban was probably my favorite thing that we saw in Oaxaca, right? And then afterwards, after we went to Oaxaca for a week, we came back to Mexico City, and we went to different cities around there, different small places. So one of the places we went to was called Tepoztlan, and apparently Tepoztlan is the place where Kukulkan was supposed to be born, right? Kukulkan is the same as Quetzalcoatl, which is the serpent god, right? Kind of like the guy that made corn possible, essentially. And it was really cool. There was something interesting there, which was that there was this mountain there, and I can't remember the name of the mountain, that apparently is where aliens land. They've seen white lights and weird orbs coming out of the mountaintop. And there is kind of like a slight culture of, UFO hunting there. And apparently, the aliens come down there, right? When we were there, it was during the day. We didn't get to see any of the weird lights or anything like that. But it was kind of interesting because the mountain that it's supposed to be kind of looms over the whole city the whole time, right? And you could actually go up there. There is supposed to be some sort of Native American building up there that we didn't get to see because we didn't really feel like going up there at that point. After a week in Oaxaca, constantly having to go up and down mountains, we didn't really feel like it anymore. And so we didn't go there. But it was interesting because that part of the mountain kind of felt like it loomed over the whole city, like it was constantly visible. And I thought it was really cool, just because I like alien stuff, I like UFOs, it almost felt kind of similar to Mount Rainier or something like that, where just there was something to it that felt interesting, and it was just kind of weird that it was constantly there. But it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with that. And then we went to this other place called Valle del Bravo, which is a man-made dam area. There used to be a lake there, and then they turned it into a dam for drinkable water, and there's a city built around it, right? And so it's kind of like Lake Livingston in Houston, or near Houston, or something like that. It's pretty cool. I liked it a lot. It was really interesting because you have to go up the mountain, and then suddenly you crest the peak, and then the valley just opens up, and in the center of the valley there's this giant lake, and it was really cool. I got sick there, so I didn't enjoy it as much as everyone else did, but it was pretty fun. We took a boat ride, and we ate on a floating restaurant, which is really cool. I felt like I was in One Piece or something. It's kind of like the Baratier. It was called Los Pericos, which means the what are they in English? Pericos. They're kind of like small, colorful birds. What are they called? Parakeets, I guess. They're kind of like parakeets. They have a different name, but I can't remember it. So, it was called like the Parakeets, and it was like a floating restaurant. It was a boat that got turned into a restaurant. It was really cool. I liked it a lot. And that's kind of like the highlights from the stuff that we did there. I mean, there's more things, right? A lot of eating and stuff like that, but that was kind of like the coolest stuff. Going to Oaxaca was awesome. And so that brings it to the end of the discussion of the vacation. Now I want to talk about the stuff that I read while I was on vacation, right? So right before the start of my vacation, I read through Kraken Rider Z, book 2. This is Thunder Kraken, I think is what it was called. And it's a really good story. I really enjoyed the first one. The first one is, introduced to the characters, get to the magic school, and then through a series of interesting situations, find a way to get into the magic school, right? To become a student. In this case, he becomes a student. Z, the main character, becomes a student, and then goes through the bonding necessary to create a flight for himself, a group of characters he's with, right? A squadron, I guess you could call it. And so he goes through basically magic school training. It's kind of partially military training, kind of like boot camp, and it's partially magic school training, right? And they finish, and then something happens that changes the trajectory of the story. So at the end of the second book, we learn that the third book is going to be about this tournament thing in order to boost morale, in order to develop the strength of the characters, and in order to show off to other nations, right? So it almost feels kind of like Naruto in this case, like the Chunin exams, right? It was really great. I really had a lot of fun with this book. It's just really well written. I really love it. So that's what I read right before vacation. During vacation, I actually ended up reading mostly novels, and that's because my Kindle is significantly easier to take with me on day trips than my iPad, right? My Kindle is about this big. My iPad is about twice that big, right? And so I would take my Kindle with me in my bag wherever we went, and so I would just kind of pull it out randomly and start reading there, just because I didn't want to use my phone. But I read through this book called Beers and Beards. It's basically a kind of like in the style of Legends and Lattes, but it's about dwarfs making beer. And it's pretty fun. I liked it, although it didn't really have the same like coziness to it. It felt a little bit different. It almost felt too flippant, or too kind of I don't know, like it was trying too hard to be funny, which is not great. I don't necessarily dislike it, and after while I was reading it and after reading it, I did enjoy myself, but with some distance from it. I think at this point it's been 2 weeks since I read it. Some of the difficulties or some of the issues with the book kind of become more apparent, and it is that the humor felt like it was trying to be funny, and it just never felt like it really quite landed, which is not great. The other thing is that it's there's not a lot of variety to the characters. They're all dwarfs. There's beer, and that's basically all they're doing the whole time. They're just brewing beer. And the thing is that our character is someone that is a person that got isekai'd into the body of a different person, and he takes over this guy's life, and he's tasked by basically the god of dwarfs to create better beer. And what happens is that the character isn't really interested in doing it, but because that's really all he knows, since he was a brewer here in real life, he kind of just goes along with it. And he has like an antagonistic relationship with the God character that's tasked him with this stuff, right? And sometimes it just feels like unnecessarily difficult for the character in a way that isn't satisfying, because it's not like the character is like deeply invested in what he's doing, sort of. And so I don't necessarily know if I'm gonna read more of this. I enjoyed myself with the first book, but not so much that I need to rush to get the next one. Maybe if I can get it for $1 or something, I'll pick it up, but I'm not gonna pay full price for the next book. And then I read Heretical Fishing, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. This is kind of like it's an isekai where the character happens to be like OP because he is a cultivator, but it's not quite like a normal isekai. It's also not quite like a normal cultivation novel. It's somewhere in between. It's very cozy feeling. It's very nice. The character just wants to fish, and for whatever reason, fishing is fishing is like a heretical activity, and so the character's constantly finding ways to make it less offensive to the people around him to fish, and he has a pretty easy time with it. Like, it's pretty enjoyable. I liked it a lot, but I saw on the subreddit that Heretical Fishing is just like a worse version of Beware of Chicken. I don't know if that's true. I did recently buy the first book in Beware of Chicken series because it was $1 on Kindle, and so I picked it up, and I'm gonna read that next, hopefully, and I'll let you know if it is kind of just a copy of Beware Chicken. I don't think so. I think that it is significantly different, but I don't know. I definitely enjoyed it though. I do want to pick up the next book. I just don't know if I'm going to do it anytime soon, just because I have a lot of books in my Kindle library already, and even though I don't care too much about my book buying ban anymore, I would prefer to buy less books just in general from Kindle, because I kind of forget about those existing sometimes because I don't use my iPad or my Kindle to read that often anyways, right? And I have a bunch of real physical books I'd rather read first. So I don't know. I'll have to decide about that. I'll have to think about that a little bit, but I did like it a lot. And Heretical Fishing was really enjoyable to read. I had a lot of fun with it, and it felt kind of right for the vibes, because the place that we stayed in, Oaxaca, kind of had like a beach resort kind of style to it, even though there really is no beaches in Oaxaca, or there are, but they're kind of far away. And it just felt nice to read about fishing and kind of just living on the beach while I was in this beach resort feeling kind of place, right? So I thought it was fun. And then finally, the last thing I read through my vacation, just because, I didn't end up feeling like reading all that much, to be honest with you guys. I most of the time was just too tired to bother reading. But the last thing I read was Dan to Dan, and I read the first 50 chapters. So I've read past the anime, but not significantly so. So the anime ends halfway through, I think, the fourth arc, which is about 30 chapters into the story. And the arc ends on chapter 50. And I think that's going to be the first couple of chapters, or the first couple episodes of the anime going forward, which I'm looking forward to. I really want to watch it soon, and I think I will go watch the movie version of it that's coming out soon. But Dan to Dan was really fun. I really enjoyed it. The art style is a little bit different from what I'm used to from the anime, but not so much that it's distracting. And I actually think I like the expressions on the manga a little bit more than the anime. I think that the anime is a bit more fluid, a little bit more dynamic, but it's a little bit more enjoyable to read the manga than it is to watch the anime for me, just because I prefer that usually, and I had a lot of fun with it. So that's it for reading. I did watch a few movies while I was in Mexico. So I watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, the last Mission Impossible movie, or Final Reckoning. I can't remember what it's called in English. Final Reckoning. I did watch Dead Reckoning as well. My Uncle Mario put it up on the TV while we were having breakfast one day, and then we watched through it. And then we went to watch the new one because everyone in my family is a big fan of Mission Impossible. So we went to watch it. It was phenomenal. It was so amazing. It was great. I watched it in IMAX, and I only paid like $8 for that because IMAX in Mexico is 160 pesos, which is less than $10. and it was great. I loved it. It was such a fun movie. It was so great. I really did have a lot of fun with it. I think that it was nice that it ties into the rest of the Mission Impossible movies. However, I don't think I really remember the early ones. I think the earliest one I remember is Mission Impossible 3, and there is a distinct difference in tone between the early Mission Impossibles and the kind of like 2010s onwards Mission Impossibles, right? But I did like it. I thought it was a great movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I would definitely watch it again, although this time I'll probably just watch it in regular standard definition, because I'm not gonna pay 25 bucks for a movie ticket, because I'd rather pay like 5 or 6, which is what I usually do, because I go to the movies on Tuesdays when they have half off discounts, right? And I also watched Shrek 2 because my sister wanted to watch it, and it's not available on streaming in the US, but it is available on streaming in Mexico, so we watched it there, and it was pretty fun. I forgot how fun the Shrek movies are, but that's basically all I did in the second half of the month here. So that's kind of my thoughts here on my vacation, on my reading, and on my TV watching. Thank you guys very much for watching. I really do appreciate that you guys take the time to do so, and I especially appreciate those of you that comment, because that's what I made this channel for, right? So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll do a TBR video starting tomorrow, and I'll have my normal, kind of videos for the month starting on the 5th. Thank you guys once again, and see you guys later.